we are live. We can quickly look at the numbers. I think it's been a day or two since we've looked at the numbers here. Total coronavirus cases, 4.5 million around the world. We have now surpassed 300,000 deaths. I did not know that. Let's check out the stats on the U.S. Oh, we're not even on the right camera here. People can't see. Come on, Patrick. Get in the game. Coronavirus cases in the U.S., 1.4 million, 86,900 deaths. Let's check out the charts down here. Definitely looks like we're coming down a little bit on the daily new cases, but of course, everybody's just now getting let out of lockdown, so that's probably going to go back up. And our daily deaths are definitely going down as well, which looks good. But how long will we continue on that trajectory is the question.
People in the comments are like, where are they and have we been fighting? Like, we went on right on time. Maybe we were a minute off.
2 minutes late.
But we've been live a minute. Like, I feel like we were right on time. There were a lot of things going on behind the scenes. We've been like trying to figure out why the audio was clipping, and we've hacked this ATEM Pro to input our media at the correct volume. It's kind of been a mess. What I can't figure out is somebody told me to watch this video, and I watched the whole video, and the guy shows you how to do all the audio correctly, which is almost exactly what we did. But the limiter, when you set a limiter to -4, nothing should go above -4 decibels. Yet we are easily able to overpower that, and he was in his video too. And I'm like, in Premiere, if you set a limiter, it'll start to compress the sound, but it will never peak over that -4. So hopefully if you're watching on headphones.
Yeah, hopefully we're not going to have the same problems we will yesterday, but we didn't have enough time to really troubleshoot the situation. I think I know what the problem is, but it's going to require like changing lots of things, and I was like, we're going to be late, let's just go live.
And people are saying we're an hour late. I cannot figure out what is going on with my computer then. Because I set it for 8:30.
Oh, and you didn't check it?
I mean, I don't know. It said 8:30 on my computer. It's like my computer's acting really weird. My time on my computer is correct. If I send an email out on any browser, it's correct.
Yeah.
But when I go to YouTube, it's doing crazy things where it won't let me set a time. It's almost acting like the time I'm choosing happened hours ago, and it wants to default to like 1 in the morning. But I set it to 8:30 and hit save. And
to be fair, normally I think Patrick's dumb and he doesn't understand how things work. But I have seen footage of you like going and picking 8 o'clock, and then I'll check it on my computer and it'll be like tomorrow 1:30 a.m. And I'm like, what?
My computer's rebooted several times. Like, I need to go to Google and look up how to check the time in a browser. But I always thought your browsers all just looked at the global time on your Windows.
Me too.
Windows. So I don't know what's happening, but here I'm thinking 8:30 the whole time.
Yeah, people are saying that we've been late for over an hour. So that's definitely your fault.
I mean, I just need to stop making these. And now it's your...
What you need to do is refresh, like delete your whole operating system on your computer.
No, that is the biggest pain in the butt.
It used to be a pain in the butt. It's really not that bad anymore. You can just do it in a couple hours.
Everything?
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Oh my gosh.
Like, because now the majority, the applications that you use are all on Adobe Creative Cloud. Windows will update itself. Windows will find all the drivers you need. It just works. It's
yeah, but I got to download Creative Cloud. I got to install all those programs.
But it's like one click. You just click like Premiere, Photoshop, Lightroom, blah, 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 and
that's
it just
already
does
3 clicks, Lee. And then I got to get Alien Skin. I got to get Luminar. I got to get AC/DC. I got to get like all these programs. I got these strange software plugins that let me see raw files in the browser because Windows doesn't like to. It's just 1,000 things, and then next thing you know, you're trying to do something, and you're like, some toolbars aren't installed, and I got to install Chrome, and I got to install Firefox, and
yeah, I always put it
that.
off, but then once I have a freshly installed copy of Windows and all the fluff is gone, I'm like, you know, it's like when you don't feel like taking a shower, but then when you get in the shower, you're like, this is where I want to be.
It's like, I should have done this days ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel.
I'm just going to let people feel like we were supposed to go on an hour ago instead of spending a full day reinstalling all that software.
You got to get to the bottom of that. I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't even know how to use a computer. Well, why do people keep posting pictures of mice?
don't know.
Is there something that we've missed here?
Maybe they think we're catching the mice or something. There's mice in the house.
I don't know. There's a lot of people
We'll
putting
keep you
mice-
updated on what's happened in Puerto Rico today, but we should continue on with the show.
All right, let's watch this video here. Now, I have absolutely no idea if this is going to blow out eardrums, so everybody get ready.
Let me turn to China, Mr. President. You called it an attack the other day. Was it deliberate?
So, a terrible thing happened, and you can look at it as a source. It took place at a certain point, and it could have been put out, and it should have been put out. And we asked to go over, and they said no. They didn't want our help. And I figured that was okay because they must know what they're doing. So it was either stupidity, incompetence, or it was deliberate, one or the other. But one of the things that is bad is they stopped people leaving. Nobody could go to China. You couldn't go to Beijing. You couldn't go anywhere in China. But you could go to the rest of the world. What was that all about? Why is it?
430,000 people traveled from China to the United States after coronavirus was known.
Right. Okay. So we took in, as you know, a very small, because I put on, in January, and I was criticized by everybody, including Dr. Fauci. I put in a wall. We put in a very strong wall. Only a small number of people were allowed in, and they were all U.S. citizens. I can't tell a U.S. citizen you can't come back into your country. And then I put up a barrier to Europe, too, because what happened is these same people and others went to Europe. Europe became heavily infected. Italy, a very favorite place of yours.
Yes.
Italy, Spain, France became very, very badly infected. Infected is a terrible word, isn't it? It all became a horror show. And then I closed it because I didn't want people coming in from Europe, if you can believe it. This is what happened. But by doing this, we actually acted very early. We did a great thing, but it's a disastrous subject, no matter how you cut it.
Knowing what you know now,
He goes on and on. I don't know if you've seen this interview. This is
No.
on Fox Business.
No, I haven't seen this.
This video is an hour long,
Wow.
and he rambles and rambles on. Never, like, I think the original question here is China to blame for this? And he goes on about the traveling and about people being infected in Europe and about he stopped people coming in and, you know, I can't stop people who are American citizens. And it's like, he didn't answer the question at all. Is China to blame for
No,
this?
see, I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like he did answer the question at the beginning. He said they were either stupid, incompetent, or...
They didn't let us in?
Yeah.
I guess I also have scrubbed through most of this video trying to find clips, and I just keep seeing the same thing over. He starts talking about Pelosi. It's just like he meanders all throughout this interview, and I'm just thinking, like, she's asking very straightforward questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly I'm no fan of Trump, and watching the normal daily press conferences with Trump, anytime anyone had a difficult question for him, he would say, I was the one who shut the borders down from China and Europe, and everybody said it was xenophobic, but I did it, and I saved millions of lives. He'd just repeat himself again and again and again and again, and it's like, that's what he seemed to be doing there, but it seemed like he did kind of answer the question at the beginning. I don't know if it's reasonable. I don't know if everything that he's saying is the whole truth or whatever, but I think that's true. I mean, that seems to be the story that we've heard from the beginning, that this was discovered. The U.S. wanted to come in. We wanted to check the labs and stuff, but China said, no, we've got it. We don't want you coming in. I mean, that story hasn't changed, has it?
No, not particularly. There was just a statement that he made somewhere, and I thought it was going to be this interview, but this is an hour long, so I've been trying to find it, and I guess he said this today. Basically, the quote was, he is now saying he wants to hit China financially. And I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe he's been saying this for years, and that's part of the tariff wars and everything. But it feels like Trump is definitely saying we are going to hit back and do something to China. And in this interview, he gets into tax breaks, and he's got all these crazy tax breaks that he wants to do, which normally I would be okay with, but under the circumstances, we're already giving away so much money. I feel like we got to increase taxes to help
Pay for all
pay
this.
for all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he starts going in and just being like, we got to get companies out of China. You know, is it Apple? A lot of companies are now saying they're going to go to India and start building plants in these other countries. They talk a lot about the pharmaceutical industry, how China is making all of our drugs, but you can never get a clear answer out of him. I just want him to say, like, yes, we do think that they are to blame,
Right.
and we are going to attack them with tariffs or do something financially to.
I agree. I think he could be a little bit more clear in that sense. I don't, but obviously, I mean, if
What
you're-
did Pelosi do? Like, in this interview, he's talking about Pelosi wants this $3 trillion stimulus package, but then she wants money to go towards, and I haven't had time to digest this. I don't know how I feel about it, but she wants a lot of money to go to like dispensaries and like marijuana companies and stuff. And you're like, is that really the people that we should be bailing out? I mean, I guess if it's legal.
That can't be true. Maybe it includes them as business owners. I can't imagine Nancy Pelosi is like, hold on, we have to allocate this much
Wasn't
money.
there a big debate that, a lot of the money should now be going towards hospitals? I think that's the next stimulus bill, is they want a large chunk of it to be earmarked for hospitals.
Okay.
And I could see where it's this like, never-ending loop where the hospitals are just going to make more people die of COVID because they're getting the money for it, and more cases of COVID means it looks worse than it is, and we need to have more stimulus because more people are out of work. It just feels like, I don't know what the answer is to that. I definitely think that hospitals should be helped out just like everybody else. But I don't know, are hospitals big business and small business, it's 500 people and less, or is like a different category? I don't know enough about the bill that's being proposed right now, but it sounds like from everything I've seen in the media, everyone's treating it as there's no chance this is going to pass. Why? I haven't dug deep enough in to know that, but.
I'm not exactly sure either. I haven't read anything about that stimulus bill. I've just seen so much in the news over the last few months about stimulus bills that have been proposed that seem to have no chance of passing, and I don't want to waste my life reading about things that have no chance of becoming reality.
But it feels like, we are now at least a month. How many weeks are we past the last stimulus bill? Because that stimulus bill was only good for 2.5 times your employee's income. So if people did not get back to work within 2.5 months, they were going to spend all of that keeping their employees employed, even if they stayed home. I feel like we're coming up to a deadline where companies and businesses are going to need that money now to get to the next stage, right?
Absolutely.
Like if my dad did not open his dental practice, he would probably be, even though he just got approved for the money, if he could take that money and use it backwards, and I'm not sure how all that works, but he probably only has another month before all that 2.5x has been used up.
Right.
So something has to pass soon.
I agree. Something does have to pass soon. I'm not sure what that is. Have you been hearing more about lockdown easing in different states and stuff?
I have a couple clips on that.
Okay.
There was one more clip about Trump because I was trying to get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
You can play that one now if you want.
China, because I also want to get to the unmasking and General Flynn, but I got to get to China first because Secretary Pompeo said that he has strong evidence that it did come from the virology lab. We've been reporting this every Sunday, by the way, from early on. You also said that you saw evidence. Can you tell us anything about the intelligence?
No, but we have a lot of information, and it's not good. But the worst of all, whether it came from the lab or came from the bats it all came from China. And they should have stopped it. They could have stopped it at that source. I call it the source. Right there.
They made
should
a
have been
decision
stopped.
to allow it to escape its borders.
I don't know if they made the decision, but it got out of control. I think more likely it got out of control.
Senator Cotton said that they didn't want the...
This woman is interrupting him a lot. Like, it seems...
She's feisty.
It seems odd, but I could see if he was dodging the question or whatever, and she needs to let him know that she means business, but
This goes on for like 40 minutes, and I was thinking he must have a really good relationship
Right.
with her.
Right.
Because if anyone else did this, it would be he's storming off or he's calling her names. So like,
well, even I'm finding it a little frustrating. I'm like, let the man speak. Yeah, he's going to say crazy stuff, but he's in the middle of a sentence, and then she's just like, but this guy said, and anyway, We can go back.
Chinese economy to contract 20% and the rest of the world to contract 2%.
So we were beating them very badly before this. We were beating them between the tariffs and other things we were doing. And we were going up, and they were having a very bad year. They were having the worst year they've had in 56 years.
He had
This
Hong
is
Kong
before.
protesters on the street.
And
2
they
million.
weren't well, and even beyond that. And we were really doing well. And that is a theory. But here's what I know for sure. They didn't allow this whole thing. They didn't allow people to go into China, but they did allow them to go out to the world, including the United States. That's why Europe is a mess. That's why, look at these countries. Russia's having a hard time. Everybody's having a hard time.
So will it get worse for those countries, do you think?
Yeah, it's, for some of them. Some have just started the process. We're getting toward the end of the process.
I don't, how are we getting towards the end of the process? I don't see how that's the case.
So again, the question was, did China, was this virus in the lab? Was it, not necessarily is it like man-made, but is the narrative that they gave a false narrative? Did it come from the lab or did it come naturally from a bat?
Yeah.
And he just kind of says, I can't tell you details. And I understand, it's a security issue. But then he just says, if it came from the lab or it came from bats, or, you know, people eating bats, like, it just feels like, I just feel like he's going to find a reason to make this China's fault. And maybe it should be. Like, who am I to say it's not China's fault, you know? Maybe the rest of the world's going to say it's China's fault too, but...
I don't know. I mean, if things are an accident, it feels very uncomfortable to me if Trump's like, we got to hit them financially because this is their fault. I mean, obviously, if it was purposeful and we had proof of that, then of course, go to war,
but
whatever.
when you have the landscape before this virus was already, we need to hurt China because they don't uphold our patents and they steal all of our intellectual property and they have unfair pricing and all of these other things, and now you compound this on top of it, it just feels like that's the direction we're going to have to go.
I don't know. I don't want it to be like that. If it's an accident, the same thing's going to happen with us. I'm sure with the factory farming, eventually it's going to create some virus that's going to spread. And I don't know how I feel about Trump's position that they locked down the borders from people coming in, but they still allowed their people to leave. Haven't all countries done that? Isn't that exactly what the United States is doing?
Like we can. Oh, I was asking this to Kristen at dinner. Are we locked down from not being able to leave the United States?
I don't think
Is there
so.
international travel right now?
I think so, but it just depends on the country you're flying to whether they want to let you in or not. So it just seems like China's doing the exact same thing every country's doing, but maybe the difference is that China is capable of controlling their people more, and so Trump's like, listen, you already treat your people like crap. Like, why didn't you do this then when we
welded
needed
their
it?
doors shut in
Right.
their apartments.
Right, but you let them fly out and infect the world. I mean, maybe that's a somewhat fair argument, but he wasn't really clear about that. Any one of these videos that you want to get to next?
Let me see how I've titled these. Yeah, maybe that one there is probably a good place to start.
Let's do it.
Back after the Supreme Court made its ruling.
Here at Lemansky's Pub, the neon sign says it's open and more than a dozen people are already inside. But before they enter, they're welcome to this sign on the front door that says, please sanitize your hands upon entering and remain 2 bar stools apart unless you're from the same household. Inside Lemansky's Pub, drinks are pouring and patrons are enjoying the company of longtime friends. For customer Katie Kowski, it's a much-needed stress relief.
I have a toddler at home and I'm a full-time nurse, so it's been very stressful and hard to not be able to go out and be with my friends and family at the bars.
Owner Kathy Gady says she reopened right after she learned about the state Supreme Court's ruling striking down the state's safer at home order.
And then I just waited for the Tavern League to send out information, and as soon as we got that, I mean, it was awesome.
Gady says she's reminding patrons to keep a social distance while limiting capacity to a third the bar can hold.
None of the
Kowski
bartenders
says
have
she
gloves
doesn't
or
have
masks,
any
right?
concerns.
Very few people in here are wearing masks.
Yep.
Are you concerned about possibly getting coronavirus from being inside of a bar tonight?
No, I don't think that.
Can I say that I love the woman right there to the left that has the mask, but it's just under her.
Well, you can't
chin.
drink beer and eat wings when the mask
That's a good
is.
point. That's a good point.
The risk presents any higher than me going to a grocery store.
A similar scene can be found just a few miles away at the Buzzard's Nest. Regulars rushing to get back to their favorite pub.
First thought, we flipped it right to the parking lot, and yeah, we got to get in and have a first drink.
Owner Larry Pryor says he's well aware this opportunity could be short-lived if Milwaukee County places its own restrictions on local taverns.
West Dallas could come in, they could call us like they did March 17th and say you have to shut down by 10 or you need to shut down immediately.
Back here at Lemansky's pub, the owner says she's also concerned her bar could be shut down, but she says one night open is better than none in the near future.
Interesting.
And in a month, they're all dead.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But, you know, on a positive note, it's nice to see how resilient humans in general can be. You know, none of those people were worried about anything.
Do you think people who died, like people who made it off the Titanic, were out cruising a year later?
Maybe so.
They were like, you know what,
when you see the photos and stuff from World War II, and you see like the bombings that were happening in London, and people are just like going about their business, and then you see the footage of Nazis all in France, and people are just going about their business with tanks and stuff around. I'm like,
where was that town we were in? Dresden?
Yeah.
Dresden, Germany, and it's like, I can't remember the number. It was something crazy, like 70% of the entire city was completely destroyed during the bombings. And everything you see has been completely rebuilt.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I thought like a few things would have been bombed. I didn't know the whole city was gone.
Yeah.
But they've rebuilt the entire place.
Yeah, but somebody's saying resilient or stupid. Yeah, I agree. But I, you know, at times when I start to get really down and think like, oh my gosh, this is just so bad and we're about to go into a huge depression and all this. And then I watch a video like that where people are like, we want to be the first ones in the bar. I'm like, we need people like that to jumpstart the economy back. You know what I mean?
We also need people like that to let us know what's going to happen.
When it's safe to come out.
We need the guinea pigs to go out so that we can be like,
yeah,
interesting.
Well,
somebody says, Crispy Bay says, here in Napa Valley, there's a bar that is installing plexiglass between bar stools so they can reopen. Not sure how good of a solution it is, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah,
well, I have a video we're about to see here soon. Why don't you go to the next video, because I think this one's a little longer, so bear with me, but it kind of covers a wide scope of things.
Okay.
The Wild West.
Wisconsin's governor reacting overnight on MSNBC.
There's nothing that's compelling people to do anything other than having chaos here. We're going to have more cases. We're going to have more deaths. And it's a sad occasion for the state. I can't tell you how disappointed I am.
It comes amid another major reopening milestone in Los Angeles County, where the iconic beaches are no longer off limits, just no sunbathing or picnics allowed.
It's great. It's like beautiful weather and everybody's doing a good job keeping the distance.
But what comes next is less certain. The county's public health director created a stir Tuesday.
If you're going to talk over this, you need to let people know what you're talking about.
You know, the Green Doctor?
I know what the Green Doctor is. Do they know what the Green Doctor is?
It's neither here nor there.
She said the stay-at-home order could be extended 3 months.
I also want to start by apologizing for the confusion I inadvertently created yesterday.
Wednesday, she clarified that some restrictions will be gradually loosened in that time.
So no, we won't be shut down for 3 more months.
Isn't this what we talked about yesterday?
Yeah.
And how every news channel and every news headline was like, shelter in place extended for the next 3 months in California.
But she did apologize and say she misspoke. So maybe the clip we saw didn't. But she acknowledged that she said something that hinted towards that.
I don't know that she said she misspoke. She said, I would like to apologize for misleading or something like that.
I think she stumbled over her words while the lady was signing, and she said misspoke.
All right.
That's not what I heard. That's not what I expect. That's not what I hope.
But in some other parts of the state, more businesses can reopen, including dine-in restaurants.
One thing that I recognize, one size does not fit all.
So I guess my question watching all these videos is just, it feels like no town in no jurisdiction, no state, nobody has a game plan that's consistent.
No.
So the lady is saying, she was like the health department spokesperson for Los Angeles County or something. She was saying that I didn't say 3 months. We are about to open. And then the governor's saying we are going to reopen. But there's still this divided line when you see the people at the bar. A lot of people, you're happy for them, but a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, what are they doing?
But that was another state,
That was
right?
another state, but
Yeah.
I'm saying each state, each town seems, I mean, what's the county that Musk is trying to get back to work with? They're doing something very different than what Los Angeles County is doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can see where the next stage is going to be a lot of frustration. And then if we have a second wave, there's going to be a bunch of blame again. If you thought Trump was getting blamed on the way that he handled the country, how are all of these politicians going to handle it when there is a second wave, if there's a second wave? And they're going to look back and say, you told us to reopen. It's like the responsibility is going to now, I feel like it should, fall on all these individual people. We know it's going to fall back on Trump because that's where everybody likes to point the finger. But we're now seeing local leaders having to make these decisions, and they're all incredibly different.
Yeah. I know. What's the line that somebody came up with a month or two ago? It was like having some cities with lockdowns and others without is like having a peeing section in a public swimming pool.
Yeah.
So it's really not doing anything, especially for places like Puerto Rico that's doing such a good job relatively. And then we're just allowing people to fly in.
But see, I don't know if that analogy is 100% correct, because I think of small towns like I grew up in, and the outside, you know, people that are traveling from areas that would be highly infected are probably not coming to these small little towns.
Yeah.
If you live in a town of 10,000 people or less, I mean, there's many towns that are 5,000 people or less.
Sure.
You could be your own like little autonomous, you know, group of people. Like, you're not being infected by the travelers. I mean, I know people in the state of Alabama that have never left the state of Alabama. I know people in Alabama who they vacationed out there, but like they've never lived anywhere else either.
Yeah.
And their grandparents were born and raised in that town, and like everyone marries somebody that they went to high school with. They're not marrying their cousins and stuff like people would make you believe. But
allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, but you also do have a lineage where you probably are a third cousin. You know, it gets so it's like,
I like how you tried to stick up for your classmates for a moment, and then you said they're marrying their third cousins.
Mean, like, third cousin once removed. I don't even know how all of that works, but eventually you get to a point where you're like, if you've been in one area, you're going to marry people that are related to you somewhere. You know, and it might be even through marriage. He's related to me through marriage of this person. You know, he's married to somebody I'm related to.
Sure.
But my point is just that I don't know that everyone's going to get this. But the big cities will. If you have an airport.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
If you have tourism. I mean, a lot of these towns don't have tourism. Nobody goes to my hometown. They go through driving to Panama City Beach. But you don't go there to like have a nice day and experience stuff in that town.
You guys have a restaurant in your town?
We have a boll weevil monument. It's the only monument in the world to a pest. And the boll weevil, it ate all the cotton, so then they had to change over and grow peanuts.
You have like a Chili's?
I don't know. We have an Applebee's.
Okay.
We have a Chick-fil-A.
Oh!
But
that might be a reason to stop off.
Maybe. I would consider just moving on and getting in another town, but...
Well, speaking of people who, you know, are being a little unsafe, going out to the bars and stuff, potentially getting themselves infected, I got a text from a mutual friend today, and they said, Lee, I have good news for you. Because, you know, I've been speaking on these live videos every night, and I've been saying, a big part of me, keeps thinking that I would prefer to go ahead and get this and get it over with.
Yeah.
Than live in fear for the next couple of years potentially, and potentially catch it anyway. You know, it's like, so I try to be safe for the next year, and I don't live my life to the fullest, and then the second I come out, then I get it. Or
I mean, the best thing would be for everyone who, and this is hard to tell people this, sounds immoral or I don't know the right word for it, but it would be for everybody who has the 99.99% chance of surviving, being asymptomatic, we should let every one of those people get it.
Yeah.
Because then we could get up to maybe 50% of the population has it, and that would get us closer to herd immunity, right?
I would think so. Well, our friend Shannon texted me this morning and she said, Lee, today is your lucky day. And she sent me a link to a website, and I think it's called onedaysooner.org. I can pull it up right here. And you can volunteer to infect yourself with coronavirus. One day sooner.
If you typed one in, it showed up as the #1 thing. It said 1 day sooner.
Yeah, so check this out. So here we go. You can volunteer right now for a challenge trial. Now, we've got over 20,000 volunteers in 102 countries that are willing to infect themselves. Keep in mind that I believe before they infect you, they're either going to
make you sign the biggest waiver of your life.
Probably. And they're going to inject you with either a trial vaccine or they are going to infect you with or inject you with a placebo, fake vaccine. Then, after a few days or weeks, they will inject you with coronavirus and give it to you. And I have found a few videos about people who are doing this. It's very interesting. And I woke up and I was like, look, Katie, I can actually inject myself with coronavirus. And she was like, hell no, you're not doing that. So she's not even going to let me consider it, which I think is very selfish of her. But check out this clip here.
Gabrielle, I know our viewers who are watching this segment right now are wondering what you must be thinking. Why would you want to do this?
I felt that I had a responsibility. I was very convinced by estimates I saw that even developing a vaccine 1 day sooner would save thousands of lives. So I thought that this was probably the most important thing I could do at this point in time, maybe the most important thing I will ever do in my lifetime.
Aren't you afraid?
Well, of course I am, but I think that it's not, I never want to downplay how dangerous the virus is, but I think that, first of all, volunteering for this trial is more important than my fear. And secondly, I think that the risk to any person of just contracting the virus by walking around outside and catching it randomly in a totally uncontrolled environment is actually in some ways a greater risk than being exposed to the virus in a controlled environment under very close medical observation with like true medical quarantine imposed on the volunteers. So I think that there are a lot of risks that are worse for people everywhere than being one of the trial volunteers. But I really do want to emphasize that it's also important for me to overcome that fear.
I think that is so awesome.
I think that's insane.
I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Remind me again what they're doing. They are injecting you with a vaccine that, there's probably 20 vaccines being made at the moment. You're getting some vaccine from some pharmaceutical company?
Yeah. I mean, isn't that how all vaccines work?
What?
They have to do human trials before they're released.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to be one of those people that does the trials. I'd rather just get the coronavirus with no vaccine trial. Seems like the easier, more reasonable thing to do.
Well, she has a 50% chance of that.
Yeah, that just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, you know how bad these vaccines can be if they're not perfectly designed?
I mean,
they can cause all kinds of health issues. That's why we can't release a vaccine prematurely. That's why it's going to take a year and a half.
I know, but this is what people have to do anytime there's a new drug. They do human trials before they're released to the public. So, thank goodness there's girls like her willing to do this and potentially save our parents' lives, right?
Seems crazy to me. It's like when Elias...
How is it crazy?
It's like when Elias says, man, they're looking for people to go on Mars and it's a suicide mission, but I would love to do that.
That is way different.
That's
literally a suicide mission. You cannot come back from that.
But you are being the first person to help us colonize it. I mean, that could be way greater than a vaccine for coronavirus.
Yes, it would be. You would go down in history more than this girl will go down in history. But in terms of...
They both seem crazy to me.
Yes, but there's levels of crazy. human trials of medicines and vaccines happens every day. That's not that crazy. Blasting a rocket to Mars where you know you will die on an alien planet, that's like the pinnacle of crazy. Taking a drug that you're not 100% sure about, I mean, I'm sure you've done a little bit of that in college.
I think everything I took was totally already scientifically proven. They knew.
You don't know that.
I'm on a drug right now. I don't know what to think of Humira.
Exactly.
I mean, it's got all these black labels and craziness.
Exactly, but you're just doing it. You're trusting that it's going to be safe, and that's what that girl's doing. Thank goodness she's here. If you want to learn a little bit more about these trials, here we go right now.
Unlike other vaccine trials, in a challenge trial, a group of volunteers would first be injected with a potential vaccine, and a second control group would be injected with a placebo. After allowing sufficient time for the volunteers who got the vaccine to hopefully build up immunities, it's all challenged. All the volunteers, those with and those without the vaccine candidate, are intentionally contaminated with coronavirus. Risky, potentially even deadly. Yes, all of that. But it also might be a quicker path to an actual vaccine for the rest of us.
It makes me just like, I don't want to diminish her, but it makes me feel like the only people that ever will take these vaccines are going to be like the lower class. There's no rich people that are signing up for this stuff, right?
That's a crazy generalization. How do you know how much money that girl has?
I would just think people who have money would isolate and would protect themselves in other ways and aren't as fearful as...
I read an article about some guy who was 55 years old, and he was like, I have children, but they're out of the house now. They're adults. Maybe they were in college or something, but he was like, they don't rely on me anymore. And I feel like they need people my age for this. It's, young people who get coronavirus, it may not be that serious. That girl was very young. But a 55-year-old man, he's getting to the danger zone. So he was like, I just feel like this is the most important thing that I can do to help the world right now.
But he's still probably like your average guy. He's not going to be some super rich dude. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, what's your definition of super rich?
I don't know, but it just, when I watch that clip, it just makes me feel like they're taking some people who are signing, like you're volunteering for these tests and trials, and it just feels like human experiments. Like it feels.
But isn't that what every drug test is?
I don't know enough about this, but they go through certain levels. Like they would test it on animals that have similar digestive tracts, like mice.
Sure.
Or they would test it on people that animals that have certain neurological systems, like humans. They do animal testing. Like, have these already gone through that stage, and now it's ready for the human? Or are they just bypassing stuff and they're just throwing pizza at a wall?
Remember,
and they're like,
I don't know about pizza, but yesterday we were talking about the llamas, and they needed the blood of llamas or whatever, and I think they were maybe infecting the llamas with the coronavirus, and they have better antibodies that they can make vaccines quicker than humans can.
It all seems super exciting to me, and I love science. Like, I love that field, but it just feels like you can't replace time. You need time to go down all of these rabbit holes and to do all these tests in a clinic and in the laboratory before you start giving them to people. Maybe the tests are much further along than I think. Just from everything I've read, it seems like these vaccines take years, maybe decades.
Yeah.
And here we are a few months into this, and we're already signing up people to, I don't know. It wouldn't be me. That's all I'm saying.
I wonder if
I would rather go to New York and just try to get the virus and hope that I'm healthy and young enough.
But you're not helping the world by doing that. Maybe you could argue if you got infected and then quarantined yourself, maybe you could be helping the world in a little bit because you aren't spreading it.
Or you have the blood. They're now doing you take the serum out and you're able to get the antibodies that way.
I wonder if you could sign up for this and say, I do not want the vaccine, but I do want to be infected. So you can study me as the 50% of people who get the virus but do not have the vaccine, but I do not trust your vaccines. You said earlier you would prefer to do that. You'd feel safer about that. And maybe they could inject you with a less than lethal amount of the virus. You know how there's been a lot of studies that have said the more virus you're inhaling, could actually be more deadly than if you just get a little bit of the virus. It'll spread more slowly or something.
The other thing she said was, I would just rather be quarantined in a medical facility where I'm looked over all the time. But this is a question I've had for months now, and I don't know that I have an answer for this, but is there really any help that you can get from the medical community? We don't have any drugs. I mean, there's debate on the hydroxychloroquine and some of that stuff and the zinc. Some camps hate it and say it's not really effective at all, and then others are saying it's incredibly helpful. But if you get the virus, I mean, they're telling us here, if you come down with COVID-19, don't go to the hospital. You should only go there when you're basically at the point of being unconscious and you can't breathe and you need to be put on a ventilator or go into an ICU room. Is there anything that doctors can do to a normal person? Like, nobody's come out and said, we recommend you taking vitamin C and taking zinc and making sure you're staying hydrated, and maybe you should be on vitamin A, and maybe you should stand out in the sun. Like, nobody's come up with any kind of medical guidelines on what you should be doing if you're getting sick. I haven't seen one doctor saying that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if being in a hospital with COVID, are your chances of surviving that any greater? Obviously, you have access to the ventilator if you need to go down that road.
And oxygen.
And oxygen. But for the majority of people, they never even get to that severe level where they need to go to a hospital. So I guess all I'm wondering is it a false sense of security for her to think, man, I'm in the care of all of these doctors, but do doctors have any clue? I mean, we just saw a nurse in a bar who was acting like, I'm not worried at all. Like, I don't feel like people have any answers for this stuff.
Yeah.
I might feel better just being in my home and being like, I'm going to quarantine in my own room.
I agree. It's a tricky situation, but I, for one, am very glad that people like that are willing to put themselves at risk to help the greater good. I mean, it's very similar to people who go to war, you know, they want to serve their country.
See, ginger and lemon juice. If you just take that, you'll be fine.
Definitely. Next up, which one? This one? New blacklight study?
Yeah, this one, the audio is very low, but this is pretty crazy.
The Wild West.
Wisconsin's governor reacting overnight on MSNBC.
There's nothing that's compelling people to do anything other than...
I don't know. It looks like it's the wrong video.
Patrick.
I think did I put it in the link of the description? It's basically a study that they did in, I think, Japan. Yeah, you can click on the link there. The one lone link in our... Maybe you just play it off the website. If they don't throw an ad in there. You know how CNN is.
You know how they are.
CNN be putting two of the same ads back to back. Like I didn't just see it.
Common sight on cruise ships, resorts and casinos. Piles of hot food in communal trays, each patron helping themselves to as many servings as desired. If just one is infected, it may be the perfect setting for a virus to flourish. And a new video out of Japan helps show how fast it could spread. Medical experts teamed up with the country's public broadcaster, NHK, in an experiment that simulates a cruise ship's buffet-style restaurant. First, one of 10 participants rubs his palms with special liquid only visible under black light. He represents an infected person who had coughed into his hands. Then he joins 9 others as they spoon food onto their plates and sit down to eat. After 30 minutes, the room goes dark before an ultraviolet light comes on. The fluorescent liquid is now visible on a lot of surfaces. Items the so-called infected person had touched. Tongs, pitchers, food tray lids. Left residue others picked up. And in turn spread to silverware, dishes, glassware, clothing and phones. After half an hour, every participant had come into contact with the liquid. 3 of them had gotten it on their faces. A visual show of how easily a contaminated substance can travel.
The issues with that video is that there's
that
a lot
is interesting.
Of material which just put on the hands, and so that's a very artificial situation.
Sorry. Yeah, it's so weird. I'm watching the audio while that's being played, and it's like getting louder and louder and louder. But I swear it's not getting louder out of our speaker here, so I don't exactly know what's going on.
I just wish I knew why this limiter isn't working. Like, why is it hitting red at times when we have a limiter set to -4? I mean, I could set it to -10, but it's like this limiter works differently than other limiters that I've used.
You mean it doesn't work? That's.
Well, I think it's doing something. If I turn the limiter off, it may just be full-blown red, you know?
I got you. I think we've got one other
My
video
point
clip
with
here. Oh yeah, sorry, we got to talk
My
about
point with
this
that
one.
video is just somebody was saying, oh, they're putting plexiglass into restaurants and stuff. But the second that you grab your chair back, and the second you go to the restroom and open the door, and the second your waiter, who's doing the same thing, is walking around with the trays and everything, like they may wash their hands in the restroom, but then you have to open that door.
Yeah.
I just feel like over time, maybe over the course of a normal dinner period, a couple hours, maybe restaurants and bars are going to be totally contaminated as well.
Absolutely.
You don't need a buffet, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems that way. I mean, when you hear the stories about the choir where they actually social distance and 85% of the choir members got it, or you see the diagram of the office and it was like 70% of the people who were all in the same room, even though they weren't next to each other, they all caught it just in the ventilation system and stuff. It's like, you can't escape it. You cannot escape it. So I don't know what the game plan is. Last video clip here. This is a great one. This will be the depression of our lifetime. What you got to say about that, Patrick?
That we're going into another depression?
The depression of our lifetime.
I mean, there'll be people that lived through two. Are there people still alive that went through the first depression? I guess they were babies.
Yeah, when was the first depression? The 20s?
29?
Okay.
The roaring 20s, like 29, 30.
Okay, yeah, so people,
They could be like 90, 100 years old.
People
You probably didn't remember it much, but I found this podcast that somebody recommended me called Macro Voices, M-A-C-R-O Voices, and you can find it on any podcasting service. I listen to it on Spotify. But one of their guests were on there, and they talk in a way that's not totally over my head. Some of these guys you listen to, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
What genre is it? I don't know.
Finance.
Okay.
And he was just saying that this is kind of like a bullwhip, where, you know, with a bullwhip, you do like, maybe you do like a small motion and it causes a large reaction down the road. And he's just saying, like, our world economy is set up to where maybe when China was getting into, in Wuhan, when China was having this huge reaction, nothing had happened here yet. But now it's happening here, but China seems to be doing better. And so we find ourselves at different points in this wave. And when everything is not lined up perfectly, we can still have depressions and recessions, even though maybe China's back to work and feeling like, oh, we didn't have to fire as many people, we're all hiring back. But when the buyers aren't there and the demand isn't there, then they are still potentially going to face the worst of it, even though they're over the virus to some degree. And then as the virus also comes and goes, you just start building up the system to where we will never all be working like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And so he was just making the argument that he doesn't see how we could possibly have a strong V recovery. We have had a strong V recovery to some degree, but he's kind of predicting, and many of these people on this podcast are predicting, that it's going to level out and then we're going to shoot back down. Just because we will never all get on the same page where the suppliers and the buyers and everything is all matching up perfectly. But he did say that just like a bullwhip, the recovery could be like that too, where suddenly it's rough and it's volatile, and then all of a sudden, maybe a year down the road, it does recover really quickly. All of a sudden, buyer sentiment changes, we all have some money in our pockets, we get our jobs back, maybe unemployment changes from 20% down to 7%, and then boom, the economy really could explode rather quickly. I think he was saying that this has happened historically in the past, but he was just saying in this particular environment with a virus, something we've never seen to this degree, that it's going to be very hard to predict what the market's going to do by looking at other markets in the past, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I see that, but it seems unlikely that, oh, in a year we're just going to have money in our pockets and everything's going to be fine. Starting businesses is such a slow process. And if there's a restaurant, just a single restaurant on a single road, and that one restaurant's like, you know what, we just got to shut down, we can't be here during this. That shockwave or bullwhip, whatever you want to call it, like, can echo for years before another tenant can get in there and get it renovated the way they want it and hire a chef and then,
Yeah.
You do all the stuff that you have to do to start the next restaurant that should go there. And maybe in a place like New York City or Charleston, South Carolina, where restaurants are coming and going all the time, maybe it's a big enough economy that there's someone else waiting. There's people with money, and they're waiting for a little discount on that real estate, and they're going to jump in there and they're going to put another restaurant in the second we're allowed to open. That would be great. But I think in the majority of places around the world, economies aren't like that. In small little towns and cities and stuff, yeah, maybe on like the main strip that's the case, but everywhere else that there are these restaurants and small businesses and dental offices and massage parlors and whatever business you can imagine, when they shut down, how long will it take for somebody to come in and replace them? I think it could be a long time.
One thing he was arguing about or making a case for, it wasn't really an argument, isn't going against anything you just said. I think everything you just said is true, but just in the market in general, they were talking about these waves that are like 100 or 500 year waves between the East and the West. Some power will come to power, and then the other side will struggle and suffer. And then the other side will come back up to power, and then, it's like this game. And they were just saying the West has been powerful for the last 100 years, and it really started with the industrialization. Once we started mass producing stuff, and the West is 80%, 70% America, but it's still Europe. Once we were able to manufacture all of that, we owned the entire world market from like maybe the 40s onward. And it's only been in the last 20 or 30 years that China has really started to beef up to where they're now a real contender. And I think he was just making an argument that when you're an investor, you typically invest in your own goods and your own products and your own companies within your nation. But for the last 100 years, a lot of these countries, especially in the East, especially China, they will heavily invest in United States companies because we're the ones investing, we're the ones making all the new stuff, we're the leaders of the world to some degree. And so he was just saying, like, a lot of people are going to find safe harbor in the US dollar and in stocks and in commodities that trade in the US dollar. So maybe America will actually, the market won't be hit as hard as we would think. Maybe the Japanese market and the Chinese market and these other markets, they could be hit really hard, but money will potentially flow into our economy and into our dollar and into our US traded companies to where maybe Apple and Amazon will not get hit nearly as hard as you would think because everybody else is trying to find safe harbor somewhere. And this is the argument for the dollar not losing its value the way that we think it would be. When the Fed is just printing all of this money, maybe everyone else's economies are doing that too, and governments are doing that. And so we're all deflating the value of our currency, our fiat currency. But a lot of people are saying, I'm going to go to the United States dollar because I have faith that they are not going to collapse. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying with Elon Musk, or what Elon Musk was saying on Joe Rogan's show, is as long as we're producing, our dollar should still be worth something, as long as we're making stuff. But in the last 20 years, China now has been making so many things that it's not maybe as lopsided as it was 50, 100 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. And
that's not good news for the hair salons and the restaurant owners. But if you have a 401k, if you're looking to retire because you're 60 years old, maybe that's like a silver lining in all of this.
Well, maybe I don't fully understand what you're getting at. Why are you saying that China being a huge success will mean that your stocks that are invested in U.S. companies will succeed as well?
No, I'm not. I'm saying China has been growing over the last 20 or 30 years to get up to where the United States is.
Okay.
But a lot of people in China, I mean, you hear this all the time. Chinese come in and buy so many assets in the United States. I mean, some of the biggest, tallest buildings in New York are owned by the Chinese.
Okay.
Some of the most expensive penthouses in these tall buildings are not owned by U.S. nationals.
Okay.
And so it's just, the West is still a place of sanctuary for a lot of other countries. If you're in Africa, if you're in South America, if you're in Asia, you're still going to put a lot of your savings in U.S.-based companies. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, it sounds like you're saying two different things here. I mean, one argument could be if China is going to become the next superpower of the world, then wouldn't everybody just invest in Chinese companies and wouldn't they invest in Chinese real estate?
That's happening.
But maybe that's way more difficult in a communist country.
Yeah, but you have like Alibaba and stocks like that. I mean, that wasn't even around 10 years ago. You know, that's like a big change in the industry now.
Right.
But what you're seeing with China is people are fleeing from China, and we're talking about companies starting to move into India and Pakistan and to all these other countries where it's just easier to make your goods there. I assume Mexico could have a big impact.
Right.
More companies will move to Mexico because they're tired of dealing with the non-transparency of a country like China.
Agreed. Well, that definitely wraps up all the videos that we had to talk about today. Was there anything else that you wanted to chat about?
I don't know if there's anything specifically. At the very beginning of this, everyone was leaving the little mice emojis.
Yeah.
And I guess for the last hour before we went live, they were talking about having an official F-Stoppers mouse cam. I don't know how we would set that up and how that would be permanently live, but I will tell you this. It would be the most boring live feed ever.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we have any mice anymore.
No, we got rid of the mouse.
Yeah,
it was a single mouse.
And that was like a week
we
ago.
handled it. Yeah, there's no mice.
So somebody's spreading rumors that there's mice here in the F-Stoppers house?
We've had no infestations. We have lizards in our house. Our house is so open to the outside. I mean,
it's not as open as you would think. Like, it's not like we live in a tree house.
It's not quite that bad, but it's the most open house
all of our windows
imaginable.
have screens, right?
Maybe so.
But your wife leaves the front doors all open, and I get it. It's like a breezy, and it helps keep it cool.
I do too. I think tonight, it's so weird how we get shipments after 10 p.m. here in Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
it's very
something
strange.
just come.
I haven't gotten any notification yet, but I told Katie, watch out for the front door, because I believe tonight we are getting a Blackmagic Cinema 4K camera. And the reason why I have purchased this camera, it is a live streaming camera, and I believe it will allow us to color grade the footage within our switcher board so we can color grade it before it goes out to you. Right now what you guys are looking at is just completely ungraded footage out of a Panasonic GH5. So I'm very curious to see if we will like this camera. Hopefully B&H has a 1 or 2 week return policy. We can test it out, see if we like it. But these cameras are so relatively affordable. I think it was just $1,300. Shoots 4K, huge screen on the back. Talked to a few buddies who have one, and they love them.
Yeah.
They love them. So I thought I'd give it a try.
Somebody is saying, I kind of wanted to talk about this too, that Jeff Bezos is about to be the world's first trillionaire.
I saw that as well.
Like maybe in a month or so, is it because the stock price will go up? If Amazon keeps continuing to climb, then he will be
I would imagine that's what it's got to be.
A trillionaire? I mean, how many billionaires are there in the world? Isn't that like less than 400 or something like that?
I don't know, but I've got access to the internet right here.
We know there's no trillionaires yet.
How many billionaires in the world? The answer is 2,153.
Wow. I was so off.
Yep. 2,154 as soon as I get there. I just got to print that money on my Tesla.
I love the picture here.
I'm trying to make a joke, Patrick, and you're...
Yeah, that wasn't a funny joke. What is the picture here? Who is that couple?
Kind of looks like Conor McGregor. Whoa.
It is Conor McGregor. Oh, is it?
It's Conor McGregor's uncle. I don't know who that is.
That does really look like him. Huh.
Somebody asked in the chat if we could go outside and do our live feed outside. Do you have any idea how much work we've done to get this looking good and to be able to show you video clips and not have computers in our lap and manage audio? I am offended by that question, but maybe we could do it one day.
Try something here. This could be dangerous. You able to go to the Apple TV?
Oh my gosh, what is going on here?
Look at this. You can see our setup. People are like, just take this outside. We got the camera here. We got the 60-inch TV, or is it 65?
65, bro.
65-inch TV. This is the Apple monitor, so I can see what I'm doing on Apple TV. Here's our command station. Get this to stop focusing. We got all the lighting. And this looks much cleaner than it did before.
Oh, yeah.
And if I don't know if I can't easily do this. I was going to get up and show you behind the TV. It is a rat's nest back there full of stuff.
Yes, yes it is. I'm impressed you figured out how to do that.
Hey, it just worked that time. So many times it just doesn't work.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that if we were outside, so screw you guys. And he says, come on, you live in beautiful Puerto Rico. Yeah, I get it. We can go out. I mean, we could easily do it with like a laptop or a phone. So maybe we will, just for something different. But it'll be a completely different type show. But we wouldn't have to look up any clips. It'll be really easy.
One thing that I feel going through this whole process, I know this is supposed to be a diary of what we are experiencing. Maybe for a lot of you, it feels like a news show. I feel like I'm finding, and you probably can tell this, I am losing interest in the details of the news. I'm not reading articles as much. I'm not being consumed by it. And for the last day or two, maybe 3 days, I've been working on this new photography project. And it's just felt so nice just to casually shoot and just work in Photoshop and like be creative. And it's like my only worries are I don't have enough time in the day to get everything I want to get done. I'm working out. I'm like, today I should have gone in the pool and I didn't have time to do that. I was working on this thing. We had electricians come over, kind of prevented me from filming the video I wanted to do. But I feel like my mind is changing where I feel much happier having a project to work on and having an actual goal. And for maybe the first month, this was the project. And I was so eager and excited to get down here and, I'm going to show you a bunch of stories that I've been reading. And that's, I've kind of lost that now. And I guess my fear in all of this is I bet this is what a lot of people feel like out there. And with that, it's kind of letting your guard down. You're going to stop caring about this virus. You're going to stop washing your hands. You're going to stop thinking this is a real threat. You know, you're not going to keep up with the news nearly as much. Like there's going to be, and I'm not saying the news is right. I think that's one thing we've learned with all of this, is that the news has an agenda and they're a lot of times selling this fear. But I'm just worried that as we get into the summer and you want to start going out and start doing the things that you're used to doing, maybe this is where we're all going to let our guard down, and maybe that's how the second waves come. Is you say, I'm tired of dealing with this. I don't care about it anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be screaming from the rooftop, just give me the coronavirus, I'm tired of it, you know? But I think there's some danger in that for sure.
Absolutely. I was at our duck pond today, and it's so nice because I have been going outside every day against the law here in Puerto Rico. And there have been other people, but today especially, there was so many people out today. And I was seeing all our neighbors and friends and stuff. And I saw somebody at the duck pond, and they're like, hey, Lee, what's up? And I said, how you doing? And they're like, you know, it's a pandemic. But luckily things are getting better, right? And I was like, I guess, but I just feel like has to be another wave. I mean, there's going to be another wave because we're just coming out of quarantine. It seems like there has to be. And then potentially there's going to be a worse wave due to the weather when winter comes around, fall and winter. So in a way, I'm kind of mentally prepared for that, where yes, I am letting my guard down because I just don't care anymore. And I watch the news and like they've been trying to scare me every day for 2 months and I'm just over it. I just don't really care anymore. But on the other hand, I am mentally preparing for how bad things in my mind will probably get. So you can't really get me that much more down anymore because I already am expecting the worst. Do you feel like that at all?
I feel that way, but I feel like I can't say that. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to freak people out. You know, my sister's unemployed. Like, I don't want to tell her that, and then makes her feel worse. Like, we're planning a wedding, so I don't want to say that to my fiance. I don't want to tell that to my parents who are trying to be optimistic about opening the practice. So, like, I definitely have reservations. And to be honest, I don't know how I feel. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like there's a very good chance that it will just die out, and maybe it is seasonal. Maybe we'll deal with this again in 9 months. But from now till 9 months, it won't be that bad. Maybe we'll find some medicine before a vaccine. I have no idea. I saw this today. If you want to cut to have the look at this, I can just use our technology. So this is a picture of the influenza pandemic of 1918 and 1919. And it shows you where we are here. And this looks like July. July is the first wave here. And then the second wave happens in October, which is very similar to, I mean, I guess this now, the first wave for us would be a few months back. It would have been like March, April. But I'm wondering if, one thing I found from this, and it's hard to view the key up here, but New York is the solid line. It looks like America was hit hard, and New York was hit harder than London, Paris, and Berlin 100 years ago. So maybe that's just the nature of America, you know?
Wow.
Not necessarily that we did a better or worse job then, or we're doing a better or worse job now, but just that for whatever reason, New York City has more people, and it'd be interesting to see what America was if it wasn't New York City. But I look at this and say the wave here came back in October, and then the third wave was back in March of the next year.
But the third wave is still dwarfs the first wave.
Yeah, but if you look at right here in New York, it just ended. It's just done.
Wait, how is that possible? What does that mean?
I don't know what's going on with this graph, but if you are
the graph maker died. That's
if
what
you're
happened.
If you're London, you had the third wave, but if you were the other countries, you just were okay. But I wonder if this is based off of weather and behavior of people during season changes, or if it's based on lockdowns and then reopening. I mean, obviously back then they didn't have the same lockdown. I don't think they didn't have the same news. Like, how could they have coordinated all of that, you know? Or is it because the virus mutates, and depending on how it mutates, that could be pushed from October to December? I don't exactly know why these viruses come in different waves and what the underlying reason is for it. But it does feel like a second wave should happen, like you said, if for no other reason we are opening back up and getting back to work.
I agree. I talked to a buddy back in Charleston, and he said they are having secret jiu-jitsu classes in one of their instructors' homes.
Oh boy.
Because they don't want to open up the gym to everybody, but just a few people are coming over and wrestling with each other. And I just feel like everyone is doing that in their own way. Maybe jiu-jitsu means nothing to you, so you are going to the beach and you're walking next to people, or you're going on car drives and you're going to the gas station and you're touching the same pump, or you're going to the bar and you're drinking with your buddies because you haven't seen them in a couple months, and it's like everybody's just doing a little bit more of what they like to do right before we open up anyway. So
do you think we could, we can't because we're not smart enough to do this, but somebody needs to make a dating app that's like you've already had COVID-19 and you're ready to mingle now.
Yeah.
It's like you have to like provide the app a test that's verified. Well, you already have antibodies.
Well, I think this exists now. There's some paper or certificate that you can get and show people that you have recovered from COVID.
Yeah.
And I think this is what
it's a badge.
Bill Gates has been saying that he wants people to have, if it's some sort of wristband or something.
On your arm.
Yeah, it's like a swastika shape right there.
No, it's not a swastika shape.
Oh.
It's a star.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know. Like, it doesn't sound like the craziest idea, but at the same time, I understand why people are like, are you insane?
I watched a news story where they were using the QRC codes. What are those things called?
Something like that.
And you have to like
QR codes?
Yeah, you have to like use your phone, and maybe you have one and you have to show it to people, and it'll let establishments know that you have been clear of the virus, or that you have already had the virus and you're good.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it's the tracking systems that people find so offensive in America. I don't know. It's that tricky situation. I see the need for it, but I also could tell that once you give people access, the government, third parties, you know, once they can sell that information,
you can never get it back.
You'll never be able to get it back.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday's video, we started off by playing that clip of the cop who was saying that, you know, all of these mandates are unconstitutional and cops should not be, you know, pulling people over if they're out because Americans are allowed to be out. And basically, we were just discussing whether or not he was right. And, you know, probably He is right from a constitutional standpoint, but in this incredibly strange situation, there has to be room in our Constitution to bend or break certain rules in the case of a war or something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but you screenshotted some comment yesterday that this guy was outraged.
Yeah, it's on yesterday's video on the YouTube channel. I'm sure you could. Did you delete it? Or?
I didn't delete it. No, I didn't delete it.
He just went on and on and brought our friends involved.
Yeah, he was like, I hate Lee, and this is the same reason why I hate Pi. I don't even know why or how he brought Pi into it. But he was basically very upset at the idea that, like, we have this Constitution and the Bill of Rights and everything, and
it's made for moments like this, not when it's not needed, and then you mend it when it's...
Yeah, and I think that's a very fine argument.
Wait, you're praising that comment?
Well, I know, like, usually I wouldn't. Usually I just delete hater comments, but it was so outrageous, and we were all laughing about it, and we sent it to Pi, and he was like, what the hell? Why am I involved in this? So we were having a good time. But I think the guy makes a fine point, but just so everybody watching this knows, if you're a douchebag about it, I'm just going to delete you and ban you from our YouTube channel. That's what I've done on our other channel. But if you have a good point and you can say it in a nice way, I will happily consider it.
But in this case, he will get banned, but his point will still be made.
Yeah, he's going to get banned eventually, unless he changes his tone and he's able to be reasonable from now on. But yeah, if I had seen that, I would have immediately banned him just because it's a ridiculous comment.
Right.
But I didn't see it. You just like took a screenshot from your phone or something.
Yeah, I just sent it to Pi, sent it to you. I got mentioned in it a little briefly, but I think it was because I'm friends with you. But
did he hate you too, or did?
Yeah, he just basically had nothing good to say about this couch. And about, you know, your views of the Constitution and Pi living in Los Angeles. I don't know what that had to do with anything. So,
you know, I wish, I was about to say, I want to be able to meet a lot of these people in real life, but I don't think I do. I think I just wish I could have a camera on them, or I could cyber stalk them more easily and just kind of see what they look like on Facebook or whatever, and be like, oh, okay, yeah, you look exactly like I thought you'd look. And then I could just move on with my day. But it's so interesting when people just go crazy in the comments. I always wonder what type of person would do this.
Kristen and I have started a new show on Netflix called I'm Sorry. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
It is like Curb Your Enthusiasm from like a female comic's perspective. It is so good.
Really?
The shows are all 20 minutes, which is kind of feels very short.
That's like a YouTube video.
And they always end the show when I feel like everything's escalating, and then it drops in size and the credits come up, and I'm like, that's a really weird way to end this episode, but I am loving it, because it's just like she is Larry David, basically. She's very outspoken, but she's young. She's a good-looking younger wife, and it's her and her husband and their kids and her publicist and all this. It's a good cast, and I just feel like the topics that they find themselves in are very Curb Your Enthusiasm type. And I don't know, I've really been enjoying it, and I'm excited there's 2 seasons. I always find these shows, and then it's like 1 season.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely have to give that a try, because I am a big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. But I have now recently, I just today finished the first episode of that show that's The Date, 11 something something.
Yeah.
With James Franco on Hulu. And I really like it so far.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's not a comedy, it's a serious drama. But it's got time travel and murder and mystery and stuff. It's like all this stuff that I really like. So
and it's got James Franco, which, aren't you a big James Franco fan?
Am I?
I don't know. I feel like people either love him or hate him.
Oh, I don't know.
He's very polarizing.
I don't know that I
for some
feel
reason.
strongly about James Franco. But whoever recommended it, it was somebody on the live chat. Thank you very much. I usually hate almost all TV shows, but I seem to like this one.
Somebody says they're into Curb, and it reminded me that, like, I love that in this season of Curb, he's driving your car.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's perfect.
He's got a good taste. He's got that BMW i3.
That car is awful, man.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome for the money.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was great, but they canceled it only after 2 seasons. So,
you know,
there's no hope for season 3.
There is a chance, though. Sometimes, like, I don't know if this show is it a Netflix original or it came out and then Netflix bought it. Because
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. I don't feel like it's an original. I don't know that I've seen that.
Sometimes
logo,
when
things
shows
get
take off on Netflix, then Netflix will bring them back. So that could be cool.
What was the show that was like the show for this. It was like dead for 4 or 5 years, and they brought it back. Arrested Development. Did you ever get into that show?
Katie, that is her show.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Every time I watch it, I'm like, it's pretty funny. I get it, but I've just never really
I was the same
gotten
way.
into it. And the same thing with Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this seems like something I would love, but I just can't.
Is it because it's old and it's already released, and you know that you're watching something that other people like? At least with Curb, Curb's got a lot of seasons. I mean, I was watching that in like 2000, 2003, no, 2004-ish is when it came out. So it's like 15 years old or so.
Yeah.
But they still have a new season every now and then. I feel like they've slowed down, but it makes you feel better when you're watching something that's not that old.
This person's saying, I'm sorry, is on NBC. So there is a chance that if it becomes a big success that it could be brought back. But yeah, maybe I'll try to watch it with Katie. It sounds like something she would like. Well, anything else you want to talk about, Patrick, or should we call it an episode?
I'm happy to call it an episode. I'm getting a little tired.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully tomorrow we will have the audio figured out. Maybe we will be filmed with a new camera. If you haven't already, we would appreciate if you would subscribe just because it's a brand new YouTube channel, the F-Stoppers Live YouTube channel, and hit that like button because people say to do that on YouTube. Maybe it does something good.
Before you end this, do you want to just look at, like, there are so many comments here, and have we banned that many people and they don't know it yet?
I mean, I haven't banned anyone on this channel yet.
I just see the comments coming in on the feed, and it's like reasonable, and then I go there and I can't even. But see, that said Maker died, which I think was a comment about the map. That feels so long ago.
maybe could this just be really delayed, perhaps?
Yeah, see, there's the maps with the skulls. Maybe that's it. Maybe the
Okay.
live chat's really delayed here. But
That makes sense because we hadn't been on this page in a while. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow.